The unseen threat. The stars stretched endlessly in the dark sky above as Dr. Ethan Wells stepped off the spacecraft onto the colony planet, Vora 7. The air was still, too still. A strange silence surrounded the area, broken only by the occasional hum of the security drones hovering nearby. Ethan adjusted his oxygen scanner, his mind racing with questions and unease. He had been sent to investigate a strange cosmic anomaly detected near the colony, one that had caused sudden power failures, missing patrol teams, and broken transmissions. But the moment he arrived, something felt wrong. The streets of the colony were empty. No workers, no guards, just eerie silence. Where is everyone? Ethan muttered to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. His communicator buzzed. Dr. Wells, this is Commander Riley. Report to the control center immediately, a firm female voice ordered. Ethan hurried toward the main command center, his boots crunching against the metallic flooring. As he entered the high-security facility, a group of officers stood around a large holographic map, their faces filled with tension. A strange occurrence. Commander Riley, a tall and sharp-eyed military officer, turned to him. Dr. Wells, we have a situation. 3 patrol teams have disappeared in the last 48 hours. No distress signals, no signs of struggle. Just vanished. Ethan frowned. That doesn't make sense. Even if they were attacked, there would be traces, bodies, broken equipment, something. That's the problem, Riley said, pulling up footage from a security drone. The video showed a soldier patrolling the colony's border, moving cautiously along the path. Suddenly, without warning, he stopped mid-step, his body going rigid. Then, before the camera could process what was happening, he disappeared. No flash of light, no sound, no distortion. 1 second he was there. The next, he was gone. Ethan's blood ran cold. How is that possible? He asked. Riley crossed her arms. We were hoping you could tell us. A hidden presence. Ethan examined the footage again. He enhanced the video, slowing it down frame by frame. He checked energy readings, gravitational fluctuations, anything that could explain the disappearance. Then he noticed something. A fraction of a second before the soldier vanished, his shadow flickered. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. There's something here, Ethan said, his voice tight. Something we can't see. Commander Riley exchanged a glance with the alien ambassador, Zell Ray, who had remained silent until now. Zell Ray was from the Valen species, known for their advanced technology and deep connection with cosmic anomalies. Dr. Wells is correct, Zell Ray said, his voice smooth but serious. What you are witnessing is not an attack. It is an observation. Observation? Riley asked, narrowing her eyes. By whom? Zell Ray took a slow breath. Not by whom, but by what? Ethan's heart pounded. He had a feeling he wasn't going to like the answer. The first encounter. An alarm blared through the facility, flashing red lights filling the room. Unidentified movement detected outside the perimeter. The AI system announced. Riley, Ethan, and Zell Ray rushed to the command center's observation window. Outside, in the dim light of the colony, the security drones hovered near the main entrance, scanning for any intruder. The screen displayed thermal imaging, but there was nothing visible. Yet the drones continued to beep, indicating movement. Ethan's pulse quickened. If we can't see it with our eyes, maybe we need to see it another way. He quickly adjusted the sensors, switching the system to quantum disturbance mode, a technology designed to detect unusual space-time fluctuations. The screen flickered, then revealed something that made everyone's breath catch. There, moving right in front of them, were shadows, distorted, shifting figures, their forms blending into the air like liquid reflections. They're here, Ethan whispered. Commander Riley grabbed her weapon, but Zell Ray placed a hand on her arm. Do not attack. Why the hell not? she snapped. Cell Ray's expression darkened. Because I know what they are. The room fell silent. Ethan swallowed. Then tell us. Cell Ray hesitated for just a moment, then spoke. They are us. Ethan felt the world tilt beneath him. What? They are a version of humanity. From the future. Riley's grip on her weapon tightened. That's impossible. Cell Ray shook his head. It is not. The shadows outside stopped moving, as if they could hear everything being said. Then, in an instant, the lights flickered. The power cut out, and all at once, they were inside the base. Cliffhanger ending. What we never saw coming. A cold wind rushed through the command center. The room plunged into silence, every screen and system shutting down at once. Ethan turned slowly. There, standing in the doorway, was a figure, no longer just a shadow, but something more solid, more human. But its face looked just like his. Ethan's breath hitched. He was staring at himself. And then, before anyone could react, the figure spoke. If only you had known what was coming. The invisible enemy. A heavy silence filled the command center as Ethan Wells stared at his own face, standing in the doorway. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The figure was him, but not quite. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and the eyes. They weren't normal. They glowed faintly, like dim stars in an endless void. Commander Riley gripped her weapon tightly. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. The figure didn't move. It simply tilted its head, observing them. Then, in a voice that echoed slightly, it spoke. "We are what you will become." Ethan felt his blood turn cold. He exchanged a glance with Cell Ray, whose expression remained unreadable. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked cautiously. The figure's lips barely moved, but its words sent a chill through the room. "You don't see it yet, but soon you will. The damage has already begun." Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, casting long shadows against the walls. The monitors behind them glitched, displaying unreadable symbols and distorted images. Then, the figure vanished, vanishing without a trace. Where did it go? Riley demanded, stepping forward, scanning the room. Ethan swallowed hard. He checked his quantum scanner, but the readings made no sense. There was no life signature, no heat signature, no movement. "It's like," he whispered, his mind racing, "like it was never here." Riley turned to accelerate frustration in her eyes. "You said they were us. Explain. Now." Zelleray's normally calm face was tense. They are what humanity becomes in the future. But something has altered them. Something. Wrong. Ethan's fingers tightened around his scanner. "Are they dangerous?" Zelleray exhaled slowly. "Not in the way you think. They do not wish to destroy you. They'd wish to erase you." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. Riley narrowed her eyes. "Erase us? Why?" Zelleray's voice was quiet, almost sad. "Because they believe humanity itself is the problem." The silent attack. An alarm blared, cutting through the tension. Unauthorized presence detected in the colony. Multiple life forms approaching. Riley spun toward the monitors, but the screens only showed static. The sensors were picking up movement, but, just like before, there was nothing visible. Ethan's pulse raced. "They're here." Riley activated the colony's defensive drones. The machines hovered outside, scanning the empty streets. Red laser beams searched for a target. Then, one by one, the drones collapsed, falling from the sky like broken toys. No shots were fired. No enemies appeared, but something unseen had shut them down. Riley clenched her jaw. "They don't need weapons," she said grimly. "They can turn off technology just by existing." Face to face with the unknown. A metallic clang echoed through the hallways. The lights above flickered wildly, casting strange, twisting shadows. "We have to move," Ethan said. "If they can shut down our systems, we don't stand a chance in here." Riley nodded. "Arm yourselves. We're heading to the underground bunker." As they turned to leave, a whisper echoed through the speakers, even though all communications had been cut. "It's already too late." The room turned ice cold. Ethan felt something behind him. He turned, and there it was, a figure shifting like liquid air, just inches from his face. He felt its presence pressing against his mind, forcing thoughts that weren't his own. Memories of a ruined Earth, abandoned planets, civilizations collapsing into silence. A future without humans. Running out of time. "Ethan, move." A hand grabbed him, yanking him backward. Riley fired her weapon, but the bullets passed through the figure like it was made of smoke. The entity didn't react. It only watched them, its glowing eyes filled with something, almost like regret. Then, in the blink of an eye, it vanished. Riley pulled Ethan down the hallway. Zelleray closed behind. The emergency bunker doors loomed ahead. As soon as they reached it, Riley slammed her hand against the control panel. Nothing happened. "They've cut power," Ethan realized, his breath heavy. Riley cursed under her breath. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way." She pulled out a manual override lever, yanking it hard. With a screech, the bunker doors slowly opened. They rushed inside, slamming the doors shut behind them. For a moment, there was only silence. Ethan's hands trembled as he exhaled. "That was too close," Riley muttered. But Zelleray's expression was unreadable. "No," he said. "That was just the beginning." Ethan turned to him, his stomach twisting. "What do you mean?" Zelleray's gaze was dark, filled with something Ethan had never seen before. "Fear. They are not just here to watch," Zelleray said softly. "They are here to rewrite history." Ethan's throat went dry. "Rewrite it? How?" Zelleray's next words chilled him to the bone. "By erasing the moment humanity ever existed." A heavy silence followed. The weight of those words settled like a storm. Riley looked at both of them, then slowly pulled out her last remaining weapon, a single old-fashioned combat knife. "If they want to erase us," she said, her voice filled with fire, "then we're going to have to give them a reason to fail." Ethan nodded, his mind already racing for answers. They had one last chance, and if they failed, there would be no one left to remember that humans had ever existed at all. Humanity's greatest test. The underground bunker was dimly lit, the flickering emergency lights casting eerie shadows on the cold metal walls. Ethan Wells, Commander Riley, and Zelleray stood in silence, their minds racing. Outside, the invisible enemy lurked, a force unlike anything humanity had ever faced, not an alien invasion, not a war, but the erasure of their very existence. The idea was terrifying. Ethan wiped the sweat from his forehead. "They want to erase us before we ever had a chance to exist. How do we fight something that controls time itself?" Zelleray, the alien ambassador, looked grim. "You don't fight them," he said. "You convince them." Riley scoffed. "Convince them? They've already decided we're a mistake. You really think they'll listen?" Zelleray met her gaze. "They are still human, or at least they once were. Somewhere inside them, a part of humanity still remains. If we can find the reason why they came back, we may find a way to stop them." Ethan looked down at his scanner. The readings were unstable, shifting erratically. The time anomaly was growing stronger. "We don't have much time," Ethan said. "If we don't act soon, history will be rewritten, without us in it." A desperate plan. The bunker shook slightly as a deep, vibrating hum filled the air. "They're inside the colony," Riley muttered, gripping her weapon. Ethan clenched his fists. "We need information. There has to be a way to understand what they're trying to change." Zelleray nodded. "I may have an idea." He moved to the control panel and placed his three-fingered hand on the biometric scanner. The screen flickered before showing a holographic map of space-time disturbances. Zellerai pointed at one spot. This is where they are operating from. If we can get close enough, I might be able to establish a mental connection with them. I can try to understand what they're seeing, what they're afraid of. Riley frowned. And if they notice you? Zelleray's expression was calm but determined. Then I may not return. Ethan and Riley exchanged a glance. This was insane, but it was also their only chance. We go together, Ethan said firmly. We're not losing anyone today. Riley smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. Walking into the unknown. Moving through the abandoned colony, the air felt heavier than before. It was as if reality itself was slowly unraveling, piece by piece. Ethan's scanner beeped wildly. The anomaly is strongest here. Ahead of them, a large energy rift pulsated in the air. It looked like a tear in reality. Flickering, shifting, unstable. And just beyond it, figures moved. They were human-shaped, but their forms shimmered, as if they existed in multiple timelines at once. Ethan swallowed hard. This is it. Zellerai took a deep breath, then stepped forward, reaching out with his mind. A shocking truth. The world around Ethan vanished in an instant. Suddenly, he was somewhere else. A vision, a memory that wasn't his own. A ruined earth. Burning cities, collapsing buildings, skies filled with black smoke. The air was thick with screams, fire, destruction. Humanity's greatest failure. And then, darkness. Not just the destruction of Earth, the end of humanity itself. A voice echoed in the void. We had no choice. Ethan turned and saw them. The figures. The future versions of humanity. Their eyes filled with grief, regret, and sorrow. We tried to fix it, one of them whispered. We tried to stop the war, stop the collapse. But we were too late. Ethan's heart pounded. So you're trying to erase us, to prevent your own suffering. The figure stepped forward. It is not suffering we wish to prevent. It is our existence. Humanity's presence in the universe leads only to destruction. We are a mistake that must be corrected. Ethan clenched his fists. That's not true. We learn, we change. Yes, we make mistakes, but we also grow. We build. We create. The figures remained silent. Riley's voice echoed through the vision. Then why are you still here? She demanded. If you've erased us already, why do you keep coming back? The figures hesitated. Because deep down, they weren't sure. A flicker of doubt. A crack in their certainty. Zelleray's voice was calm. You still remember. You still feel. If you truly believed humanity was a mistake, you would not have returned at all. A long pause. Then, the lead figure's voice trembled. We are afraid. Ethan stepped forward. Afraid of what? The figure looked at him with haunted eyes. Afraid that you are right. The final test. The world snapped back into focus. Ethan gasped, stumbling as he returned to the present. Riley steadied him. What happened? Ethan looked at her, his mind racing. They don't want to erase us. They're trying to stop something worse. Zelleray's voice was urgent. The decision is ours now. We must prove to them that humanity is worth saving. Ethan took a deep breath. Then we show them. He activated the colony's historical database, broadcasting images of humanity's greatest achievements. Art, science, discovery, compassion. The moments where humanity overcame its own darkness. The air around them shifted. The rift flickered. The figures hesitated. And then, slowly, they stepped back. The energy rift began to close. Riley exhaled. Did we do it? Zelleray nodded. We gave them what they lacked. Hope. Ethan watched as the last remnants of the future beings faded into the air. And then, just before they disappeared, the voice whispered one final time. You were right. We were wrong. We see it now. And just like that, they were gone. Ethan let out a shaky breath. The colony stood silent once again. Riley looked at him. So, what happens now? Ethan smiled slightly. Now, we move forward. What we never saw coming. The colony stood in silence. The air felt different now, lighter but fragile, as if reality itself had been stretched and stitched back together. Ethan Wells took a deep breath, his pulse still racing. They're gone, Riley murmured, looking around, her weapon lowered but still firm in her grip. Celeray nodded slowly. For now. Ethan turned to face the alien ambassador. You think they'll come back? Celeray's usually calm face was unreadable. They did not leave because we defeated them. They left because they are uncertain. That means there is still a chance they may change their minds, or something else might influence them. A chill ran through Ethan's spine. What do you mean, something else? Celeray hesitated. They were afraid, Ethan. But they were not afraid of us. Ethan frowned. Then what? Celeray met his eyes. Something worse. The echo of the future. The bunker's lights flickered, as if responding to the weight of those words. Ethan checked his quantum scanner. The anomaly was fading, but small echoes of energy rippled through the air. Riley narrowed her eyes at the readings. If they didn't erase us, shouldn't the disturbance be gone? Ethan's fingers tightened around the device. It should be. But it's not. Celeray closed his eyes, sensing something beyond what the scanner could detect. We stopped them from erasing humanity, but their actions created another possibility, another path. Ethan looked up. What kind of path? Celeray exhaled. One where something else takes their place, a warning from the unknown. Before anyone could respond, the air crackled with energy. Ethan barely had time to react before the control panel surged with static, their screens flashing strange symbols. The lights dimmed, and an eerie hum filled the room. Then, a voice spoke. Not a whisper, not an echo from the past. Something new. You have changed the timeline. The voice was layered, inhuman yet familiar, as if multiple realities were speaking at once. Ethan's throat went dry. Riley raised her weapon. Who's there? No answer. The screens continued glitching, and Ethan saw something that made his blood freeze. The figures from the future were gone, but in their place, a new shadowy shape was forming. Not human, not anything Ethan had seen before. Something else had noticed them. The real enemy. The voice returned, low and cold. They were right to be afraid. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Who are you? Silence. Then, the rift that had been closing suddenly widened again. The energy pulsed wildly, and this time, something stepped through. Not the pale versions of humanity from before. Not beings that were lost in time. This was something ancient, something that had been waiting, watching. And now, because of the choices they made, it had found them. Riley pulled Ethan back. We need to leave. Now. Celeray's eyes glowed faintly as he whispered. It was never about stopping the past. It was about preventing something from waking up. Ethan's mind spun. We weren't the mistake. His breath hitched. We were the barrier. And now, the barrier had been broken. The final decision. The room shook violently, and the walls groaned under the pressure of the disturbance. The entity's shadow loomed, shifting like liquid darkness. Ethan's hands trembled. The future versions of humanity had come back to stop something, to prevent this moment from happening. And they had failed. Riley looked at him. Tell me you have a plan. Ethan's mind raced. Time. Reality. The energy distortions. They had one last chance. Ethan ran to the control panel, overriding the stabilizers. If they could collapse the energy rift, maybe they could trap it before it fully crossed into their world. The entity screamed, a deep, guttural sound that rattled through their bones. The rift flickered violently. Celeray stepped forward, placing his hands against the glowing interface. His body trembled as he channeled his own energy into the system, reinforcing the collapse. Ethan gritted his teeth and activated the final shutdown sequence. The rift began to implode. The entity roared, its shadow stretching toward them. But as the energy surged, its form began to disintegrate, pulled back into the collapsing anomaly. A final, piercing shriek filled the room. And then, silence. The lights flickered, then stabilized. Ethan collapsed against the console, his chest heaving. Riley let out a sharp breath. "Tell me that worked." Xelaray steadied himself. "For now." What we never saw coming. Ethan stared at the blank screen. The anomaly was gone. But the uneasy feeling in his gut remained. Riley put a hand on his shoulder. "We changed the future." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, but what kind of future did we create?" No one had an answer. Xelaray's voice was quiet. "We did not see this coming." Ethan exhaled. "That's the problem with time, isn't it?" He turned, looking at the vast expanse of space through the colony's observation window. There's always something we never see coming. And somewhere, out there in the universe, something else was waiting, watching. And sooner or later, it would come.